Welcome back to the Student Hub Live. In this session, we're going to take a look at Netiquette. Now, learning online is absolutely brilliant. You can study in your pyjamas, you can have tea whenever you like, you can talk to people often at different times of the day, often people who are in different countries or areas to you. But communicating online can sometimes lead to misunderstandings. Sometimes you can get into situations where you think, oh gosh, no one's replied to me, I'm not quite sure if I've said the wrong thing. So we wanted to have a session to talk about the various ways in which you might communicate online as an OU student. Now, we've asked you to fill in some of our widgets, our interactive polls. One of them is, my confidence communicating online is. You can choose anywhere from very low to very high. We'd like to know, have you had misunderstandings online? That's a categorical answer. That's a yes or a no. There's a multi-choice question. I find it harder to understand what people mean online than in person. And that's to what extent do you agree or disagree? And have you contributed to a forum? A forum is an OU space, like a sort of message board, where you might meet other students. And for those of you just starting your modules on Saturday, you may or may not have gone into your welcome forum, for example, or your tutor forum, or a cluster forum, or various other online spaces that you can post messages to OU students and members of the team. So to talk about this whole issue, I'm joined by Rahana, who was in our previous session before, who has been a tutor. So you're going to talk to us a little bit about that perspective of things. And Simon and Linda are going to give us a student perspective from their various different angles. So Rahana, the thing I wanted to talk about first is Adobe Connect, which is the online tutorial platform, which is fab. We do a lot of Student Hub Live workshops in it, and it's the space that students go to when they have a tutorial. How do they communicate online in that sort of space, and what advice can you give them from a tutor?
So ideally, you would have a headset, because a headset means that you can also talk and communicate with other students and your tutor. So and hear properly as well, absolutely. And it's a really, I mean, you can get them from sort of pound shops. They don't have to be really expensive. And I know students in the past who have gone and bought them for £1, and they've been great. They've been just what they need. You can also use a chat box to communicate as well. But it's really about the opportunity of coming together with other students, about learning about the materials, having academic conversations and discussions, so entering an academic dialogue about the content, about what you're learning about. And the key is, the more you put in, the more you get out. So if you have got your headset and you can talk and you can hear properly, if you are communicating in the chat box as well, you're more likely to get more out of that. And they're really useful to attend. And you can also listen to recordings of them as well. So if you can't get to one live, they're usually recorded, so you can listen to a recording. And they can really help, not only with sort of feeling like you belong to the university and the module that you're on, but they can also really help you with kind of that idea of writing a TMA, for example. So you might get some really useful hints and tips about your next assignment.
Yeah, no, they're really important for that. We asked everyone at home whether they'd had misunderstandings online, and 86% of people have said yes, they have. HJ, any examples of things that people have had misunderstandings about?
Well, not really. We've gone on a bit of a diversion.
Oh right, I see.
Which sometimes happens. We've actually
misunderstanding.
This is a misunderstanding about what we're supposed to be doing. I think we've actually just been talking about our study snacks. So Jeanette is our study snacks. So Jeanette, this is very important to students. It should be on our hierarchy. But Jeanette is a big fan of trail mix. Robin likes toffees. And Margaret likes hummus and crackers, which I absolutely love hummus as a study snack. I don't know why. Jade's a big fan of strawberry chewits and seems to be craving the ice cream ones. But I think Robin had a great comment, just to pull us back a little bit, saying that I think emojis help to convey your meaning when you're saying something online, where you may be missing something like body language or where facial expressions aren't available.
Yeah, I'm just getting to grips with emojis, actually. There are lots of them, and I never quite know, like, the right ones to do for the right things. And then I'm always really jealous when people do all these things. But it does soften things. Although sometimes people will say something and they put in a smiley face, and I think, I'm sure you're being a bit passive-aggressive there. But I'm a psychologist, so yeah. So study snacks and things. You two have bought some food-related things for our hierarchy of needs.
Yes. Shall I go first?
Yeah, go on then.
Right? So I've brought something healthy. Not quite hummus and crackers, but an apple. Yeah, a nice healthy apple. very good for you.
Brilliant. You can pop it on the top of the tree, yeah? And Linda, what did you bring?
Right, for me it has to be chocolate. Any shape, any form, any colour, as long as it's chocolate.
OK, I don't think you'll be on your own there.
I've got to try and not eat those now.
No, well, you can have your apple back. OK, so these online spaces then, you know, they can be a space for, you know, learning about the TMAs, the tutor marked assignments that you've got going on, but they can also be a space to talk to other students. Now, sometimes people cannot know what's appropriate. Like if someone's teaching at you, I saw a great sort of slogan once, and the teacher had said, don't talk while I'm trying to teach, and the student said, don't teach while I'm trying to talk. And I found that really interesting, because actually sometimes going and meeting other students can be more valuable than hearing something that you may already know.
Yeah, and I think it is about having a space to communicate with other students and to feel like you belong. I think there is a distinction, there isn't a slight distinction between it is an online classroom, so the tutor is there to deliver and to support learning. So there is an element of having that in the back of your mind and remembering that that's quite important as well. And I think you were right about the whole idea of like using emojis and learning to put your hand up. So you'll see at the top of an Adobe Connect room, there's like a banner with different sort of emojis and ways that you can sort of signal that you want to speak. But sometimes the groups are quite nice and small, and you can all have your microphones on and everybody can just have that open discussion. So I think it depends on your tutor, the size of the group that you're in, and the other students as well. But it is a great way of feeling like you belong.
There's also a personal chat kind of tab as well in those, and actually, I mean, they're also moderated, so tutors do keep an eye on those. But I find that sometimes, particularly if you see the same person for various different modules, to actually just pop PM and just go, hi, how are you? Not too much, because obviously you've got to get on with the tutorial, but it's always nice to make that little connection if you see somebody you've met on a day school or whatever. You know, I mean, one of my colleagues did about 3 or 4 courses with me, and actually in the first year had twins. So that was always something I could quickly sort of, how are the twins? You know, and that's you know, that's a nice kind of thing to just bring that connection alongside, because in the main chat and in the main tutorial, it's very, you know, it's very business-like, and you've got to get on and do the learning. But I do think sometimes a nice little kind of hello is good.
Yeah. It's also good to be active in those tutorials, because you can just sit there and listen and text away and do various things. But the whole point of these learning opportunities together is to go through stuff, to talk about things, I guess, to put yourself on the line. Linda, how have you experienced then talking with other people in those sessions?
Well, people won't be surprised to know I'm a very prolific talker on the forums, but the more I put in, the more I get out. And I think that was brought home to me before the last exam I did, which is pretty horrendous, and I can say it now because I passed it, but it was horrendous. There was a small group of us that were most active in a revision forum. We had seen material, and between us all we were discussing it, what the questions might be, what our approaches might be. And we also found out one of the girls had a very poorly little dog, so we were trying to reassure her about the dog. And we became quite a small family, and I think between us all, we got us through the exam in one way or another.
And you've experienced times when you've been in a tutorial and the tutors split you into groups, like breakout rooms, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah.
And so you've been able to talk about the subject in smaller groups.
Yeah, and I actually love that. That's great. And, you know, again, you know, you can keep on track for most of it, but it was nice. We had a tutorial when I was on level 1 where there was about 20 people there, and the tutor just split us into groups of 3 and then set us off on a task. And that was great, because we were just, you know, and I immediately kind of made friends with 2 other students. And also, because there were 20 people, we couldn't have mics on, but the moment we were in the breakout room, everybody was on mics, so it was actually better. And obviously, it's always good to talk. You know, there's less misunderstandings with that. But, you know, so yeah, breakout rooms are great.
May I just say, the important thing is not to be intimidated by the tutorial. You're not being put on the spot. Your knowledge is not being tested. Everybody else is in the same boat. If you don't want to participate and just want to sit there and quietly take it all in, there's no pressure on you to contribute. But at the same time, if you're not sure what's going on, you can just type a little question in the chat box, and invariably there'll be somebody there that can answer the question while the rest of the tutorial is going on, usually another student.
Yeah.
And also, if you leap in, I find this, especially with maths, is that actually if you leap in and do answer the question and get it completely wrong, then the tutor says, why did you think it was 64 and not 16? Yes. And then, you know, so it is absolutely brilliant sometimes if you do want to just leap in to get, you know, because I think when the tutor says, OK, who's got an answer, I think there's a lot of nerves so people think, I don't want to be the first one to answer. Yes. But you can. And sometimes you'll get it right and sometimes you'll just fall flat on your face. And that one's more of a learning experience.
And it's okay to do typos because you're not expected to be a good typist when you're in a chat box.
OK, we asked people whether or not they find it harder to understand what people mean online or in person. So let's see where the results came from that. So 53% somewhat agreeing, 18% definitely disagree. HJ, is everyone getting on out there in the chat?
We're always getting on in the chat, actually. I think the best thing about the chat is we always like to share different things. So when we were talking about headphones, we got onto all the student discounts we can get, which is always fantastic.
Let's talk about shopping now.
Yes, well, we move on quite quickly. We're not very focused in the chat, which is fine. This is what I absolutely love. But the Students' Association will come along later, so they can fill us in on all the fantastic discounts because they're all clued up on it. But we've been having a great conversation about different things we find difficult communicating online. So Sarah finds context and length a bit difficult with some of the forums, and Paul struggles with typing. Sometimes we'd be in different parts of the country, we speak in different ways, we use different words, and sometimes we put that in the chat, but then people don't understand what we're saying. Or myself, I like chatting, it's fine because no one cares about spelling or anything or whatever I talk about. But when I post on forums, I always agonise over it, and Ross agrees as well. Ross said it took me 2 days to decide what I was going to write to introduce myself, and I know that feeling. And Karen, I think this is a big one these days. I can't understand conversations when people abbreviate everything.
Oh, I know. Some of these things, these text speaks, I'm not very down with kids with that either. But yeah. So forums, Rahana, then, are a thing that are commonly used. And I know people do have some anxiety about it. Particularly, I think, students who, you know, may be having difficulties and things. I've known students with Asperger's syndrome or students who've had mental health challenges, and, you know, maybe on a really low day, you can think, oh, no one's responded to me, because, you know, you just think the worst. So it can bring a load of stuff with you. But the forums are less instant, aren't they?
They are. So a forum, then you'll post, and then it's like a message board, as you said, and then someone will post, hopefully, in reply, and that might not happen. And I think you almost need to sort of just remind yourself that that's okay. Yeah. I think there are a couple of kind of good rules to follow, if you like, for forums. One of them is to just type. And I've been a student with the OU when I've kind of agonised over my first welcome post. What should I say? But actually, just have a go and post something. But remember that it is still an online classroom, so your tutors are still there. They are being moderated, so, you know, they're meant to be a safe space for everyone. And I think sometimes, you know, for students saying, you know, oh, well, I've read all of the book already, and you're like thinking, well, the module's not even started yet. How can I have done that? Is to remember that you're running your own race. Yes. It's your own journey, and you know, that person's situation might be very different to yours. So you might work full time, have 5 children, and, you know, be studying as well. That person may be at home with ill health and have more time to study, though. So, you know, it's all kind of looking at different, you know, well, not looking at different people and just focusing on your own journey. And I think also recognising that they can be anxiety causing for other students. So just being mindful of what you say and always trying to be positive and upbeat and supportive. And I certainly, on the module that I tutor on, there can be some really lovely student support going on. And even though it is an OU forum, I'd still also be a little bit mindful of what you share on there as well. And I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit about, you know, it's lovely when you see people several times over a course of over a course of time. But if it's your first module that you're studying, don't go on there straight away sharing your phone number. Just kind of hold back.
Block people. Have you got the answers? No, we're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So not sharing your TMA, your answers to your tutor marked assignments. I mean, they're there for you to chat about things, and also a great place to ask questions. And to seek support from students.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, it sounds a bit like, and I think I'd echo this, a little bit like a little bit of seasoning of kind of personal information, in the sense just a little, so you get a more three-dimensional picture. I loved one module I did where we were having to draw software diagrams, lots and lots of diagrams, and the first thing the tutor said is, draw a picture that symbolises you. Which was great because it got us, and it was just a little seasoning, and then together with other things to not going off too much. But I think sorry. Anyway,
May I just say it's very easy to be deterred by somebody posting on a forum showing off their great knowledge on a subject. And it could be because they've studied it as a hobby for years, but as a tutor once told me, everything you need is in the module. And as long as you stick to your module, you'll pass the exam. And just because somebody has a greater knowledge than you doesn't mean they're going to pass an exam. So just study within the module, do the work in the module, and disregard everybody else's supposedly superior knowledge on that subject.
Now, you gave us a great list of do's and don'ts for forums. Can you remember them? Because I've got them here if you can't.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. Well, I did say about, do be friendly, didn't I? And things like that. And I said, one of the things I said don't is actually don't share your exact result, because I think that is supposed to be a thing that is a rule in forums, but it's often ignored. And I think it's great to say, I struggled, so do say I struggled, I found this hard. Do say, I'm so relieved I did really well. But I think sometimes, and this is only because if you find out that you missed out on something by 1 or 2 marks, that can be quite hard. So, I would say don't do that. I think... to remind me, because I think I've got most of them.
The one of the other ones I liked that you said were about don't be afraid to start new discussions and things as well with people. And that whole idea, I think, of feeding back, because sometimes you might not have anything to say, but say Rahana's put a post up about herself and she's spent 3 days thinking about it and tells us about her cats and this, that and the other. You could just say, hey, that's great, Rahana, I really like cats too, and I'm Simon and I live in wherever. So you don't always have to have something amazing, but sometimes it's just nice to reflect and feed back. And as you say, start those new discussions that don't need to be mind-blowing.
Absolutely. I think, and again, I often found that forums were really good, especially with TMAs, because a lot of the questions I had already been asked. But if they haven't, you should never be afraid to start a new discussion. The only time I ever saw a moderator say, let's draw a discreet veil over this, was a discussion that was really off topic and was starting to get political.
But sometimes I think people can put posts on forums saying, what's the question to this? And there might have been a discussion minutes beforehand in detail about that very question. So sometimes people can post something on a forum and it's good to sense check what's going on, almost like you wouldn't just enter a room and go, what's going on? Someone tell me, blah, blah, blah. In the same sense, in online space, you can search for things under a forum. And that's very useful because sometimes, as I well know, 3 hours can pass and all of a sudden you're down some rabbit hole of a discussion about something entirely different, which may have been why that conversation was shut down. So using the search function and thinking, what's the question and has it been asked before? And if not, can I go and find the answer? Because it can be annoying to have to repeat that.
Can I just add as well, subscribing to the forum as well is a great way of keeping on top of the discussions. And that way, it's going to just send it straight to your email. I think that's a really nice little tip. as well.
But some forums can be huge, in particular some whole group forums, and then you can feel really overwhelmed because you're like, am I missing out on everything? So it's important to be mindful, I guess, of how much you need to know, and bearing in mind that your tutor is the key point. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, you can always go to their tutor. I actually find it useful to not have notifications, but to have a little time in my calendar where I go into the forum, have half an hour, normally before lunch or when I know I'm going to get out, and then have a look and see what the news is, and then turn it off. Like I wouldn't read a whole newspaper. I'd sort of have a go at what I could get through. And for me, that's a good way of dealing with it. How are you?
We're doing well. The thing I like most about chatting with people online, I think, is finding people that are just like me. So Paula says, my desk is always organised chaos. I'm not sure about the organised part. Definitely chaos comes into it after I've started studying. But I am always envious of people who have these really neat, tidy study spaces. But I suppose that's the good thing about being with the OU. We're all very different. We've had a good conversation about paying attention to what people say online as well. So a lot of people have found that they'll see people who do say that they're quite far ahead, or they've done 3 TMAs already when we've only just done the first one according to the study planner. And what we've been talking about is actually what matters most is where we're at. As long as we're on track or we're following the plan we need to get our module done, that's the most important thing. And if people are able to go ahead and get ahead, then that's good for them, and it's fantastic that they're able to do that. But like with everything else, we're all so different. So if we're just making it by and just getting to the deadlines, then that's perfectly fine, isn't it?
Brilliant. Thank you, HJ. The one topic I really want to deal with, we've only got a few minutes left, is social media. And a lot of students go onto Facebook groups, which are not moderated by the OU. There are also WhatsApp groups, which you need to put on silent because they're ping, 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 ping. And also Twitter, which is commonly used by academics, but sometimes by students as well. What are our experiences of using those groups, and what advice would all of you give?
Well, the advice I was given, which I follow with Facebook, is it's not moderated. Go on at your own peril, use it for social interaction, but be wary of asking a module-related question, because there's no way of knowing whether the answer you receive is the correct answer. Whereas on the official forums, or fora, as I like to say, a moderator will step in and say, great answer, but I think that. You don't know whether anything's right or wrong on a Facebook.
There are also other OU groups, so I haven't often been part of a Facebook group for my module because you just don't know, it's not moderated, so you don't know what's going on. But there's things like, I have been a member of the OU Disabled Students group on Facebook, and that is a perfect place for that because it's very good, very sociable, and you can really make links with people. So I think there are other OU groups on Facebook which absolutely are definitely worth joining. Module ones, I'm less convinced on those, I have to say.
I'd like to say that as a tutor, if you've got a question that relates to your TMAs, your module, anything to do with your academic studies, speak to your tutor rather than post in a social media space. Social media has its place. You might find a great network of support there, and I think that's really important. But your academic studies really can be done within the facilities provided by the OU, so whether that's online rooms or the forums.
Brilliant. And of course, Student Hub Live. Not to forget. Excellent. Well, thank you all. It's been a really, really useful discussion. So thank you. You two are going to stay with me. Simon, you can nip back on the hot desk if you'd like to. Our next session's going to be in a minute, when it may not go to plan. But before you go, you bought some paper clips, and I want to know what that is all about.
Well, do you know, this is one of the things, and actually, I'm one of those people who will end up, in fact, now I've finished my final module, I keep finding papers still. And so keeping everything clipped together, keeping everything under control, really essential part of being a student. And if you're anything like me, put everything together and clip it. That's it. So yeah, I'm going to put that there because those are the things that keep me alive and studying.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, our next video, we're going to replay again because I love it so much. Anne made us this great video about her experiences at some of our Student Hub Live workshops, and she's going to tell us about her cats and her study space and various other important things that she thinks that other OU students need to know about. Then we're going to come back and talk about when it may not go to plan. So I'll see you for that next live session in just a minute.